Okay, we are going to do something very exciting today. We are going to unravel the unit circle. And when we unravel the unit circle, we are going to create the graphs for sine and cosine. Okay, so this is what a graph would look like. You can see that it's broken up into quadrants. So pi over 2, remember that's equivalent to 90 degrees. So this is the same as 90 degrees. And then this is 180 degrees and 270 degrees and 360 degrees. And then the negatives on the other side. Okay, we don't really care about that, but I just wanted to point it out that each of these two blocks represent a quadrant. Okay, so now let's get back to the unit circle. We know the coordinates of the unit circle. So this coordinate here is 1, 0. Okay, up here is 0, 1. And here is going to be -1, 0 and 0, -1. Now we know going around, again, these are broken up into quadrants. This is going to be 0, and we're going to work in radians because normally graphs are in radians. So this is 0 radians. And then this would be pi over 2 radians. And here we have pi radians, 3 pi over 2 radians, and 2 pi radians. And you can go in reverse as well, right? So you can start here, and let's go in reverse. Okay, so 0 radians, and then this would be also negative pi over 2 radians. Oops. And then this would also be negative pi radians and negative 3 pi over 2 radians and negative 2 pi radians. Now remember, the x and y coordinate on the unit circle represent the cosine and the sine. Okay, so let's start with the cosine. Okay, so I'm going to box all the x values. So if I'm going to look at the cosine of -2 pi, well, that's going to be 1, right? I can see that there. And -3 pi over 2, going counterclockwise here, that would be up at the top. The cosine there is 0. And then going around that unit circle, I have a -1, and then I have a 0 again down at the bottom. And then I'm going to go back around. So here I'm really just going around in a circle. I'm starting here and I'm going around in a circle. And as I'm going around in that circle, I am listing what my coordinates are. Okay, so at 0 degrees or 0 radians, both would be the same, I'm back at 1 again. And then at pi over 2, up at the top, okay, so now I'm up here again, I'm at 0. And then I keep on going around in my circle, and now I'm back here. And I am at -1. And then down at the bottom, I'm at 0. And at 2 pi, I'm back at 1. So now let's go ahead and graph that. So the cosine function at -2 pi, I'm at 1. And then at -3 pi over 2, 0. Negative pi, -1. And I'm going to keep on going, and I'm just going to be graphing what these coordinates are. Here's my x, and then here's my y. Okay, so now at pi over 2, I'm at 0 again, and then I go down to -1, back up to 3 pi over 2 at 0, and then back to 1. So my cosine curve looks like that. Okay, that is the cosine of x. So now we're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to do it for the sine. So at negative 2 pi, now I'm looking at my y coordinate is 0. And then going around counterclockwise, 1, and then 0, and then negative 1, and then 0, and then 1 again, and then 0, and then negative 1, and then I'm back to 0. Okay, so when I go ahead and graph this, now this is my x and my sine is my y. So I'm going to negative pi over 2, and I'm going to put it at the point 0. And then at negative 3 pi over 2, I'm up at 1. And then at negative pi, I'm back to 0. And then negative 1, and then 0. And then I'm back to 1 again, and 0, negative 1, and 0. So my sine curve looks like that. And this is the sine of x. And we just unraveled the unit circle to get the graphs of the sine and the cosine. Okay? All right. So if you look at one complete cycle, okay, that would be of the sine function. What the sine looks like is this. Notice that the sine starts right on the origin. So the sine of x starts at the origin. Whereas the cosine starts at 1. Okay, so the cosine starts at 1. Okay, so we're going to be learning about the transformations that happen to these graphs and what they mean. And since trig is used really to represent tides, to represent sound waves, music, there's all kinds of real life applications for trig. So it really is kind of important that you understand what these values mean as you transform the graph, meaning you vertically stretch it or horizontally stretch it or compress it. You shift it up or down. Okay, you shift it left or right. All these things represent something specific, and we're going to learn about that in this lesson.